borders where people just come in and we take your details and everything. But now we have a border management information system, BMIDAS, where before you come in, we take your biometrics and, you know, we profile you and you come in. And then again, we've taken it a step further where we have all our, most of, let me not say all, but over 100 crossing points now. We have our IVS, which is the Intelligent Video System. What that does is, some kilometers before you coming in, these are the land borders, of course, you're recorded, you know, we see who's coming in, who's not coming in. So that's one system, and it's linked directly to our command and control at the service headquarters. So what that does is we have real-time information, 24/7, every day, of whoever is coming in or going out of our borders. So that is a whole different level in terms of border control. And then we go to the e-gate. The e-gate is a system where, whether Nigerian or non-Nigerian, you come in, you have to scan your passport, and it's linked to a database at the control and command and control center at the service headquarters, being monitored day and night, every day, 24/7. And we also have the API and the PNR. What that does is that we pull information from the airlines before passengers even board. It's an interactive system where before you even come into the country, we know who's coming in. So we know that you're a person of interest, or we know that you're a person who is suspicious, or who has a funny attitude, or we don't want, you know, or you're a person of interest, let me just use that word. Then we let the airline know that this person is not allowed to board, is not allowed to come into the country. So we have that, we pre-profile passengers before they even come into the country. So that's another level in terms of border control, in terms of border governance. So we are not just knowing who's coming in, but we have the ability to say, listen, this person is a person of interest, or this person is wanted in this place or this country. So do not, or we even look at travel plans as well, travel history. Where has he been to? Has he, you know, people coming from Brazil or from Colombia, you know that there's a pattern there. So we also have the ability to check your travel pattern. So that is what we're doing now. That is the system we have now, the border information system.
Is the command and control center functional as at today, though? 123 trained.
Yes.
Are they posted? Are they deployed? And is the command and control center up and running?
Up and running, not yet, in a couple of weeks. Because first of all, before you man such things, you must train them properly. These are data analysts. They must know how to read the information. How do you know what to escalate? How do you know where to direct information to? So these are the training that's going on. We inducted about 123 officers yesterday. And they're going to the next phase of training, which is done in conjunction with ICAO and IATA and other, you know, agencies. So this is what's going on right now. And the training is going to go on for another week or 2 weeks. And then hopefully then we start, we become operational.
Thank you very much,
yes.
Comptroller General Kemi Nandap, for your response to that question. But I want to get back to Dr. Agomo now, because the correctional centers, facilities, you know, seem to have quite a number of issues, and the immigration seems to be a bit settled, you know, in the whole ministry. So we hope the correction.
Another minister has promised us it's going to be settled soon.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
in talking about settling the correctional facility, I still want you to let us know what it's like, you know, for the inmates. You talked about the feeding, the maltreatment, and all of that. But what about medical facility? Are there medical facilities in correctional? Hold on, just a minute. Are there medical facilities, you know, that can cater, you know, for the needs of these inmates medically? Because I mean, I've seen reports of people who are being freed or granted bail for medical reasons. So I'm wondering if there's a medical facility that is up and running in these centers. I mean, they should be taken care of in there. That's one. Then two. We're talking about the overcrowding issue. At the moment, as of September, the report says that 3,590 inmates are on death row in the country. 3,590, that's a huge number. The last time an execution was carried out, or a death warrant was carried out for the execution of an inmate on death row, was in 2016. And that was by the former governor of Edo State. 2016 to 2024. It looks like the governors are not willing to sign the death warrants of these inmates. Should there be another way out? Because I mean, this is another form of, you know, keeping people there. and complicating issues for the correctional facilities. I want to hear your take.
Okay, so there are two issues you brought to the table now. One is about medical, the other one is about death row. I'm going to speak on both. So first, in terms of the medical, I'm sure that I wouldn't be wrong to say almost every or the greatest and a lot of the correctional centers do have sick bays. Yeah. So you do have a particular.
Are there facilities? Are there personnel?
They have sometimes sometimes you have a clinic. Sometimes you have it's of course of different grades of different structure, and then of course it's something to have a facility, but it's also a different thing to have all of the appropriate drugs that you require, all of the appropriate specialization in terms of medical that you require. So there are facilities that you have that are clinics. Now the question therefore is that what are the services that are able to be provided in those facilities? There are also some few correctional centers that have almost like an little bit upgraded I don't know what I could, at least almost like an upgraded hospital. There are not many of them. But the point I want us to see, it can always be improved on. There are a lot of inmates. If you talk about number, that's why the issue of number is always a big issue. Because no matter what you are providing, if you overstretch because of number, it becomes a problem. The second thing is how many of the professionals are you attracting into the service? How much of the appropriate drugs do those persons have access to? And this is also another opportunity, and I'm going to use this opportunity to call out to almost different professional groupings: clinical psychologists, medical doctors, psychiatrists, different other professions. They can begin to look at, especially in the medical space, begin to look at what can be done to provide service. I'll give you one just example. Let's talk about mental health. Section 24 of the Nigeria Correctional Service Act of 2019 talks about mental health review board, and this is because the regime that is running the mental health processing of inmates is based on lunacy law, the olden days. But the Nigeria Correctional Service of 2019 came in to bring some levels of reform around it. Members of the Mental Health Review Board was at least, I believe, inaugurated virtually on the 25th of August 2022, but haven't been able to begin to implement that role. So the question therefore is, and in terms of mental health, and I want to say this, apart from the fact that there are some facilities that have asylums, you find that you don't have appropriate professionals to deal with that. Appropriate training for correctional officers in terms of handling mental health. Though there is now a protocol, but it needs to be fully entrenched. So the question is is it possible that those who are professionals within the mental health space, National Association of Clinical Psychologists, Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria, and all of that, to come to an aid? Because every place where you have the correctional centers, there will be their members. Is there something that can be worked around that? And that could be other things. So the response to your issue on medical is that a lot still needs to be done around that space to ensure that we have proper access to health for every inmate, proper access, and that the appropriate drugs and all the rest of that happens to be provided. And again, that's part of what the minister was also talking about, the holistic reform area. That's also one area that will also be looked at.
Okay, so on the death row.
Yeah, that's the next thing I want to talk about. The question about death row, first of all, you need to understand that there is a UN moratorium on death. Executions. And what he has said is that countries should not execute, and there is a reason for that. We have found a lot of errors, even in countries like the United States. They found out with DNA, a lot of people who you have found to be guilty and had killed, they found out that the people were innocent. More so, the kind of system that we have. So, when you find persons who you put in death row, what we have currently is that you have a process whereby, for example, through the prerogative of mercy committees, both at the Presidential Committee on Prerogative of Mercy and the state committees on prerogative of mercy, sometimes people who are on death row can be reviewed. Depending on the situation, they may be put to be a lifer. Okay? Because if somebody is a lifer, it's actually easier. You're not killing the person until the way the person is, unless another process comes and the person is able to get out, depending on if the criteria the person has met. So it is not something right for Nigeria to be executing. And this is key. If because of that monitoring and because of the fact that a lot of the errors have been made. So I think that when we are looking at reducing the number of persons who are in custody, the question is not about going to kill them, it's about life. What of the people where you find that error? And there have been a lot coming out of that space. So what we need to do is a question of being able to look at all of the cases, including the cases that are death row. What are those ones that are qualified to be lifers and the rest of that? And this is really the point I'm going to make at this particular moment. Because we have found that countries that have capitalization, when you say capitalization, that's the countries that are currently executing people. It has not reduced the severity of certain offenses in terms of those countries. So it doesn't make it easier for that country. Rather, the other way around.
In other words, it shouldn't be the way to go. Not at
no,
least not often.
Not to keep. No, I wouldn't recommend that Nigeria.
I'm sure that's why the governors, of course, don't want to sign all of that. But I think you have made a good recommendation. I'd like to get to the Honorable Minister now, and I want you to look at the fire service. Like the immigration, I said earlier, immigration, of course, seems to be standing on 4 legs. Correctional service, maybe 2 legs. The fire service, maybe no leg at all. So I want you to tell, that I hear that there's this, you're trying to, you want to do something about the Act of 1963? So tell us about, what your reforms are in the Nigerian fire service, because, I mean, a lot of Nigerians, many do not even know that it still exists, based on how it functions.
Thank you. So first thing about fire service is we have to understand that act, it's an act of 1963, and it's about fire service, and I sincerely believe it should be fire and rescue service, because all over the world, rescue is at the center of it. Fire service all over the world is not.
But the Senate is kicking against that change, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm not to the best of my not to my knowledge, because it's the convention all over the world. For instance, I was in Maiduguri during the flood, and I didn't see, and I told the CG Fire, I didn't see fire service officers rescuing people. When you go to the UK, when there is hurricane, there is flood, there is whatever, it's the fire service that you see, rescuing people, emergency medical services, EMS is a function of fire service, So there's a lot. We're trying to reform that in line with global best practice.
But someone will want to question all of that reform, because now that it is just the fire service, we don't see its capacity. We don't see. Now when you
cannot, because a child is finding it difficult to talk, assume that the child should never talk. All right, you can't assume so. That they're struggling at the moment does not mean that with the right reforms, that is the essence of reform. And to the best of my knowledge, Nigeria is a country of optimists, or not a country of pessimists. So pessimism is not in the dictionary of Nigerians. So for me, we're optimistic people. This is something that must work. This is an agency that affects me. This is an agency that affects you, okay, that affects all Nigerians. So we want the fire service. The act needs to be repealed, not even amended, repealed and enacted. We need to enact a new fire and rescue service act. That's number one. And number two thing is that another thing we saw was that we got to the fire academy. It was nothing to write home about. And today, if you go there in Sheda, you'll see massive construction work going on. Within the next 1 year, we're going to be done, and we're creating the best. And I'm telling you, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of facility, we're creating the best fire academy we have in West Africa, right there. Because the era when you see private organizations, some oil and gas companies, banks, and etc., sending their officers abroad for firefighting and rescue training, we think that money should be here. We should be able to retain such funds here. We should create an academy. And next week, we're going to be in the UK. We'll have on the invitation of the Home Office in the UK, and we're collaborating with the fire service in the UK will be in Liverpool. The what they call National Resilience Centre of Excellence in Liverpool will be on Motor March, which is the fire academy. So we are also obviously forming that level of partnership with the United Kingdom to be able to build a fire and rescue service that Nigerians will be proud of. And also another thing that's also important that we're working on is even the communication, something as basic as communication. Nigerians, once there's an emergency, Nigerians should be able to get in touch with fire service like now. You know, there must be dedicated, not just dedicated, like there must be that easy toll-free access. So we're trying to work on this so that obviously the response system. And I have also told them that in terms of their expenditure, they really need to sit down and look at what's done all over the world. Today now, with certain minor drones, you know, with payloads, lot of what's it called, firefighting is done all over the world. We have to look at technology in that regard. And one other thing that is very critical that I think we need, it's the issue of opening up the space for private sector participation. Let's be objective about it. We cannot, government alone cannot be in charge of firefighting. You can't be the only provider of solution. We must open the space for the private sector to participate. Why did I say that? I'll give you an example. When you go to the banks, you see security officers. It's not every day that armed robbers will come to the bank. But there are security officers there to make sure, yes, because you're trying to be proactive, you know. But when you go to most of our commercial centers in Nigeria, you do not see any officer that is even trained, that is even a fire and rescue service officer. That's why, for instance, give me a reason why you put 100 people, 200 people, you run hotels or you run commercial activities, and you do not even have somebody that is trained, not just on firefighting, but even on rescue and emergency service management. If somebody faints, you saw what happened during the ministerial screening National Assembly when one of our colleagues fainted. You know, at that particular point in time, he could have died. When I was chairman NDDC and there was the probe, I could remember that Professor Ponde fainted, you know, and had to be rushed to hospital. That is because the National Assembly Hospital was nearby. Just assume that the hospital is not, you know, like it's a market like Wuse Market or Balogun Market or somewhere. So we sincerely think that we must be proactive. We must see life, saving of life must be a priority. You understand? And in doing that, it's not, to me, the best doctor is not a man who treats an ailment, but a man who helps you to prevent an ailment. So we as government, we have to be proactive, and that's what we're trying to do. So how do we open the space? How do we now allow Nigerians to be able to run what they called, fire service should be, the responsibility of fire service in real sense, they should be regulators of the industry, but the law does not give them that power yet. That's why they cannot regulate. The fire service should also be a trainer, because what fire service should do is to train people on firefighting, on emergency management, on rescue, train people, and these people, and you certify them, you know, as professionals. Then banks, markets, malls, hospitals, and then we now recruit these people. By doing that, you also create job. You create a new line of career. You understand? So we believe that there is a lot to be done. We're choking the economy, we're choking the whole system, instead of us opening up new career opportunities for people.
And the fire academy?
Yeah, and that's why we're building the fire academy now. And our plan is within the next 1 month, and we want to thank Mr. President for supporting us to build the fire academy. I tell you, when we give our word, we keep it. In the next 1 year, rather, we will be commissioning the fire academy. Okay. And once we finish that, that's the national. We hope to be able to replicate that, at least for now, in every region. You know, once we do it, 6 in every region, make it 7, then we'll start till we get to every state, such that, because imagine the number. Let me give you an instance before I go. Imagine the number of jobs we can create. Realistically, consider the number of non-residential buildings we have in Nigeria. Imagine the number of markets we have in Nigeria. Imagine the number of banks, schools, churches, companies, and all these commercial ventures. You cannot tell me to come lodge in your hotel when if anything happens to me in the middle of the night. There's nobody that can provide that immediate. That's what fire service should do. So that's why it should be called fire and rescue. Well, we believe that this will create jobs, not just create jobs, create a new career path. And
but what's holding that up? You were a lawmaker, and so it should be easier for you to navigate the lawmaking process.
And I have to tell you, we've been getting great support from the National Assembly. We hope that once we're able to, let me just say this before we go, and it's very critical I say this. You see, by repealing and enacting a new Fire and Rescue Service Act, I tell you, it will be like opening of the gate for the whole process, because you are only as strong as the law wants you to be strong, and you are who the law says you are. Even if today the fire service wants to work, the law has not given
has restricted it. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. We do sincerely appreciate it. But unfortunately, we're out of time. You know, it looks like we're going to have you come again, you know, very soon.
We haven't talked about the NSCDC, by the way.
Exactly, the NSCDC is there, and really, I would have loved to ask the CG what she's doing, you know, to deal with those who are corrupt within the service, because you know all the reforms, you know, what you're doing as CG, what the minister is doing, but it looks like there's still some bad eggs, you know, trying to give the immigration service.
Like you always have anyway,
yes, but at least you need to reduce them to the barest minimum. So I'm sure you're looking in that regard, and of course, you know, give your service a clean name, just like the clean name of the Honorable Minister of Interior, Olubunmi Tinjoji. Always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much. Looking forward to having, you know, more engagement with you. Very insightful. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Also, the Comptroller General, Nigeria Immigration Service, Kemi Nanda. Thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you.
Wish you all the best, and of course, we hope that the Immigration Service will continue to do great, like it's doing at the moment.
Absolutely.
Dr. Oju Agomo, Executive Director, Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, PRAWA. Congratulations, 30 years, you say. We rejoice with you. Of course, member United Nations Subcommittee on Prevention of Torture, Associate Professor of Criminology and Security Studies, Queensland University of Bogota. Thank you so much for being our guest, and continue the good work that you're doing. We hope our correctional service becomes very correct, like they say. All right, so I'm Yanre John. That's our package this Tuesday. Remain tuned to the NTA.
All right, and I'm Victor. So we'll see you again tomorrow. Let's keep the date.